investigate these allegations?
I haven't, no, nothing.
Oh, I know. We gotta fix this camera. Hold on, guys. Let me fix the camera, and then we'll get started. Actually, I'm gonna start the stream while I fix the camera. Phelan, please stop. I'm Mrs. Dave, the lawyer, and we are picking up where we left off at the Todd Blanche hearing. Let's go.
Thing about the lawsuit, I will, when you say commit to investigate allegations, we don't do that. But certainly if the lawsuit needs to be answered and part of that includes investigation, absolutely.
Well, you do investigate allegations of illegality. This policy would clearly be not only illegal, but
no such
morally
policy.
repugnant, would it not? You've agreed with me that it should not be the policy of the United States to do it.
But in your question, you're suggesting there is such a policy. I'm telling you there is no such policy.
Well, if there is no such policy, then I presume you would investigate it.
When I see the lawsuit, I'm just not familiar with it. We will, of course, do what's
But
appropriate.
you'd agree with me that it would be wrong.
That it would be wrong, meaning it would be wrong to send somebody home to be tortured, yes.
Let me ask you about allegations in connection with David Gentili. I think we talked about these allegations when you visited me. Thank you for coming to my office. In May of 2025, David Gentili was sentenced to 7 years in prison for his role in an almost $1.8 billion Ponzi-like scheme that defrauded over 10,000 investors, many of them middle-class retirees, of their hard-earned savings, and he was imprisoned. He boasted to fellow inmates and others that he was going to be released because he paid $2.5 million for clemency. Evidence collected by the Eastern District of New York supported those allegations and reportedly also included statements by Father Frank Mann that he spoke to the president about David Gentili. The Eastern District of New York was investigating these allegations and reportedly received a call from one of your top deputies instructing them about the concerns of the Department of Justice. The investigation was stopped by the Eastern District of New York. I wrote to you on June 23rd and United States Attorney Joseph Nacella about these allegations that an investigation into this impropriety was shut down at the request of your office. Did you have any involvement or knowledge about the commutation of Mr. Gentili's sentence?
President Trump, as I've said a couple times today, has full authority to pardon or commute anybody convicted of federal crime.
That's not my question.
So I'm answering your question, Senator.
Did you
I'm answering
know
your
about
question. What my communications with President Trump, I will not talk about. He does not, nor should he. He has no obligation to discuss pardon or commutation decisions with me, and he has not. As far as what you just suggested about an investigation, I believe you're referring to a news article that was the result of apparent leaks, and I would caution that there's falsehoods in those news articles.
I'm asking you whether you had any involvement in commuting that sentence or in stopping the investigation into the allegations of impropriety, possibly payment to Father Frank Mann.
And I answered the first question, but when you say stopping an investigation, there's an assumption built into your question that I will not concede. We will not talk about whether investigations exist or don't exist, and certainly some leak about something that we supposedly did doesn't warrant an answer either.
There was an investigation, correct?
That's my whole point in saying is that there's an assumption baked into your question that I don't think is true, meaning that we cannot comment on even the existence of investigations
You've
like that.
commented this morning to Republican colleagues about several investigations.
No, I haven't.
Well, you commented in response to the chairman about the FISA investigation,
About the what? Excuse me?
the investigation that he asked you about.
So, Senator, my point is that you're asking me questions about a news article, the source of which was apparently leaks. It would be inappropriate for me as the acting attorney general to comment on such leaks or news articles that you're referencing. But when it
Well,
goes
I accept that you're not going to answer my question, but I think there is a need for the Inspector General to look into the investigation that was apparently, according to these articles and other information, stopped as a result of your intervention. Let me move on. In 2017, more than 10,000 9/11 victims filed suit against the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. That lawsuit is heading to trial. Information was promised by President Trump in September of 2019. That information has not been provided. Will you commit to meet with those families and provide the information they need for their lawsuit?
folks from my office have met with the representatives of those families. We will commit to continuing to have communications, of course.
And provide the information they're seeking?
Well, you're saying, I don't know what the information is you're talking about, so obviously I can't just commit to providing the information.
Well, let's talk about other information. Information about the Epstein abuses. Your predecessor apologized to the Epstein survivors with good reason, because as you've said today, mistakes were made. I'm asking you today, with Epstein survivors in this room, to apologize to them.
Well, so my heart breaks for every victim of any sexual crime, whether it's involving Mr. Epstein or somebody else. And so if you're asking me to apologize that this happened to them, of course, absolutely. This is a horrible thing, which is why this Department of Justice, this administration is focused very heavily on going after these predators. And so, yes, of course, that's part of my job as being empathetic to the
Will
victims
you
of crime.
apologize to them for the mishandling and mistakes that were made by the United States Department of Justice?
I will absolutely say that any mistake that we made should not have been made. And I very much, I can answer the question, or you can just interrupt me, Senator, but I am answering your question. I very much, and I have said this to anybody that asks and publicly before, any mistake that was made is not appropriate. And so, yes, I am sorry that in about 1% of the documents, mistakes were made. But what I will say on top of that is we put tons of resources to rectifying those mistakes immediately, including pulling down documents within minutes of being informed that there were mistakes, potential mistakes made, and working 24/7 to rectify any mistakes. And that's what I would expect the victims would want us to do, and their counsel and this body as well.
And you would agree with me, wouldn't you, that you can well meet with any of the survivors or victims with their counsel present? You said you can't meet with them, but you could meet with them if their
I never
counsel
said
were
I can't meet with them. I said if they were represented, I had to meet through counsel. But of course, I can meet with them. I'm the acting attorney general of the United States, so yes, I can. I very strongly believe that for these victims to tell their stories and the evidence that they have, they should meet, like any victim of a crime, with the FBI or a law enforcement agent, and that we will do everything we can to prosecute if we can.
The judge in Florida referred your misconduct. She concluded that there was misconduct and misrepresentation and improper purpose in that legal action to the Bar of New York for potential discipline, including losing your law license. I know you disagree with the result of the ruling. Has that kind of referral ever happened by a federal judge for an attorney general of the United States?
Can you
I don't know, but I'll tell you something. That judge never asked us to respond. She never gave us an opportunity to respond to anything. And she didn't refer me. She just asked that a copy of the order be provided to the New York bar, because there are several activist groups that have filed complaints against me. So listen, as I've said earlier, I think anybody on this committee, especially the lawyers that have practiced, can read that opinion and reach their own conclusions. But I very much disagree with the judge's insinuations about me, and we're going to do what we can to make that right.
One last question. Would you agree with me that agents of the United States should not fire into cars unless fire their weapons into cars unless there is an imminent threat?
Give a short answer to that.
There's a well-established standard as to when an agent can discharge their firearm, and I think that's something that should be followed in every case.
And that includes not firing weapons into cars.
Mr. Chair.
Do you want to respond to that?
I mean, there's not really a response. It requires federal agents to follow the rules.
Then let's move on. Before I call on Senator Britt, I want another letter supporting the nominee from the American Border Story, a national organization representing 300 angel families. Quoting from the letter, the families we work with are not focused on politics. They want leaders who take crime seriously, who understand the national security implications of open border criminal networks, and who will prioritize victims over ideology. We believe Todd Blanche understands that responsibility and would approach the Office of Attorney General with seriousness it demands. End of quote. Without objection, that'll be entered in the record. Senator Britt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I think that's an excellent segue. I appreciate your commitment to all of the victims, the Epstein victims, your commitment to hear from them and fight for them. Thank you for saying that today. I only wish that my Democratic colleagues had that same level of conviction when it came to meeting with the families of those who have lost loved ones at the hands of illegal aliens. So thank you for that letter. Thank you for your commitment. I can only hope that they will answer the call and meet with their own constituencies who unfortunately have lost ones that they hold dear. Mr. Blanche, I want to applaud the work that you and DOJ have done to reduce crime and violent crime across the country. We've heard it a number of times here today, both in the chairman's opening, to Senator Moody talking about it, to you talking about it. We currently have the lowest murder rate that we've had since 1900. When you're looking at violent crime arrest, we are up 184%. This is real results. This is what you're supposed to be doing, keeping Americans safe. We know that you've done that through a number of ways, task force and joint operations, interagency cooperation. We've seen the forces, those task forces, successfully pursue numerous cases in our state related to major drug trafficking, related to firearms trafficking, all of which has been linked to, in many cases, broader criminal enterprises. So we're glad that our children are safer and that our communities are safer. What I'd like to know from you, because we've seen in Alabama this have tremendous results. We've even seen in one case a corrupt local law enforcement officer in the Southern District of Alabama who had engaged in a range of criminal activities in his capacity as an officer being held accountable through this work. Based on what I've seen in Alabama, I hope that you continue this all across the country. Can you speak to the work of these task forces and the success that you've seen and how you intend to build upon this work moving forward, if and when confirmed?
Yes. So the Homeland Security Task Force regime that we've set up in every single state and every single district in this country is designed to do just what you were describing. So work not just with the federal government, not just DOJ, but to work with Department of Homeland Security, sheriffs, cops, local prosecutors, local law enforcement, and assistant U.S. attorneys to go into that community and eradicate it of human trafficking, drug dealers, narco-terrorism, and the results, it's been set up for almost a year in most places, and the results are evident in the statistics that we show, but they're really more evident when I go out to U.S. attorneys' offices and meet with HSTF groups like I do all the time. To a person, they say, this is what we needed forever. This is what works. Having law enforcement get together in a room and say, we need to tackle this gang, or this apartment building has a drug problem, or even this individual needs to be targeted because he's a violent felon and needs to go off the streets. It's basic law enforcement that I've done for a long time, that President Trump echoes and trumpets and has done since January 20th. And that's why, I think that's why we're seeing the success that we're seeing, and we're not slowing down. HSTFs are up and running, full speed ahead, and I hope that we continue to still see the results that we've seen over the past 10 months or so.
Thank you for your commitment to that and all the work that you've done. I want to take a brief moment. Our distinguished and late colleague, Senator Graham, was excited about your nomination. He was passionate about many things, which we saw here in this committee, just in amazing ways. One of the things that he was a champion of was the unborn, and that is a deeply held conviction that we both have. And I want to talk to you and address the issue of the chemical abortion drug that we have seen just spread coast to coast. As you know, pursuant to a Biden-era administrative action, the FDA, there is no longer an in-person dispensing requirement in place for the drug, for mifepristone. It allows it to literally be dispersed across state lines, all across the country. We are losing children, and we are putting women in harm's way. Look, it has no oversight, no safeguard. I got to hear the story of Jonna Affolter, who's here with us today, and I am so grateful for her willingness to be here. But I got to hear it firsthand yesterday. I know many people have read her story in recent news articles about her then boyfriend, now ex-boyfriend, a doctor, no less, actually forcing a crushed abortion pill into her mouth in the middle of the night, then taking her keys, holding her hostage so that she could not go get help. This is sick and twisted and must stop. He used his ex-wife's information to buy those drugs online, to kill his own child, and to endanger Jonna's life. And sadly, her story is one of many. And so can you commit to me today that this administration and DOJ will prioritize taking meaningful and thoughtful action to address the dangers that occurred in the current status quo to women all over this country?
Absolutely, Senator. And it's not only what the Department of Justice can do, but it's what the FDA is doing right now for the first time in a decade, actually doing real studies about the safety and the appropriateness of these drugs. And, you know, I've seen video myself of what appears to be pills coming even from overseas to young women, and doesn't matter who applies for it, anybody can get it. There's no instructions. They just come dumped out of a little plastic bag, and it's wrong, and I very much commit our resources to stopping this.
Thank you very much. I want to turn to an issue that I also raised with...
So for people that are just joining me, just want to remind you, I'm in the chat talking, so I want you guys to listen to this hearing. This is a very long hearing, so we're going to listen, and when I have something to say, I'm going to pause it and speak. Otherwise, I'm chatting with you. I'm not playing a game on my phone. I am chatting with you. I can't do it on the computer because I wouldn't be able to walk on my treadmill and do it, so I have to be on my phone. So that's what I'm doing. welcome to my channel. Let's continue.
With former Attorney General Bondi, and that's illegal offshore gaming and the concern in the rise of illegal gaming amongst minors. In 2024, a study found that individuals who began gambling before the age of 18 are 50% more likely to develop an addiction to gambling. This has become a major issue among America's youth, in particular America's young men. Just last year in the Northern District of Alabama, we saw a case where 10 men pleaded guilty to managing a sports betting operation and accepted over $2 billion in wagers via an offshore server located in Costa Rica. Senator Blumenthal and I have worked together on this issue and recently introduced the GAME Act, which would prohibit social media companies and advertising websites from targeting minors with sports betting advertising online. We also sent a letter to DOJ encouraging the department to use its existing statutory authorities to pursue injunctive relief and to block illegal offshore gaming operations. I want to tell you how much I appreciate the response. It was very substantive that I got to that letter, but can you also commit to me today that you're going to make this issue a priority and take robust action to combat the reach of illegal gaming operations within the United States, and then in particular the targeting of minors through this?
Yes, Senator, absolutely.
Thank you. The U.S. Census Bureau reported over a decade between 2010 and 2020 that the over 65 population in the United States experienced the largest ever 10-year numeric gain and percentage point increase in terms of share of the overall population. In its annual report to Congress last December, the FTC noted that total fraud losses by older Americans defined as age of 60 and older increased almost fourfold from 2020 to 2024, shooting up from $600 million in 2020 to $2.4 billion in 2024. As our society ages, and it will continue to be a problem that we must take robust action to address, particularly given technological advances and other ways that this fraud is occurring. I introduced the GUARD Act with Senator Gillibrand, and it would allow state and local law enforcement agencies and to use certain federal grant funding to utilize blockchain for investigating financial fraud. It also permit federal law enforcement to assist state and local law enforcement with tracing tools for blockchain technology. I'm thrilled it was reported out of this committee by voice vote earlier this year. I know that DOJ has programs in place like Elder Justice Initiative, but can you speak specifically to DOJ's efforts with respect to elder financial fraud and the extent to which we will work to continue to make this a priority under your leadership, and the importance of collaboration with state and local law enforcement officers as we work to bring justice to these people who have been abused?
Yes, Senator. We are very focused, not only at Maine Justice, but at every U.S. Attorney's Office on protecting our elderly who are absolutely victims of scams of any sort, and many of the scams are coming from overseas, from Burma, and from these literally entire buildings filled with individuals cold calling our senior citizens, trying to get them to give them money or send them money. And so we've charged I think over 300 this year alone. We'll keep on doing that, and it has been a priority, as it should be, and it will remain a priority of the department to target these criminals. Again, many of whom are not even in this country, going after our senior citizens.
Thank you so much for your service, and I look forward to supporting your nomination.
Thank you, Senator.
Before I call on Senator Rona, I have another letter for the nominee supporting Mr. Blanche from the Americans United for Life, a pro-life organization. I quote, "Mr. Blanche's commitment to respecting human life is evident in his actions as acting Attorney General. We at Americans United for Life are confident in Mr. Blanche's commitment to a fair and even application of law," end of quote. Without objection, it'll be entered in the record. Senator Hirano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Mr. Blanche. To ensure the fitness to serve of all nominees who come before any of my committees, I ask the following two initial questions. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement relating to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator.
Mr. Blanche, over the course of the past 5 months, the New Mexico Department of Justice has talked to your staff about getting access to information for its investigation into an alleged crime at Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch. Will you and your team continue to cooperate with the New Mexico Department of Justice and help it get the information it needs?
Yes, we're continuing to work with them, and yes.
Thank you.
Senator.
Mr. Blanche, at an April 8th press conference, a reporter asked you a question about President Trump's desire to see his perceived political enemies prosecuted. You answered, quote, "That is his right, and indeed it is his duty to do that." To clarify, Mr. Blanche, do you believe it is the president's right and duty to order the investigation or prosecution of his perceived enemies? Yes or no?
I can't answer that yes or no. That wasn't the question. And my answer was that as the President of the United States, under Article 2, he's in charge of the Department of Justice. And so my answer reflects that idea, not that he
I
has
think
a
what
right
the-
to go after his political enemies.
Reclaiming my time, I think that what the president meant was pretty clear, and I just wanted to know whether you thought that that is indeed his right and duty to prosecute his perceived enemies. So let me get to that. Investigations of the president's perceived enemies aren't theoretical. They are happening. For example, last August, President Trump posted on social media that George Soros should be charged with RICO. Weeks later, one of your deputies directed several U.S. attorneys' offices to investigate Soros's charitable foundations for violating the RICO statute. Mr. Blanche, to confirm, were the U.S.
Let's quickly talk about this, because I was shocked last year. I went to a luncheon, and there was a very prominent figure in my community that was addressing George Soros. And his take was that George Soros is a great person and just does all this charitable work, and that the right are just full of conspiracy theories about George Soros, and he's really a hero, and the right just demonizes him. I was really shocked to hear this, because the impression that I get from George Soros is that he funds like organized crime. He funds organizations that commit crimes. Like he helps put together these protests that possibly he makes sure that there's like pallets of bricks outside these protests, and he funds candidates that he knows that are extreme. And it's like public knowledge, like you can look this up. But I was just listening to the Rogan podcast with Caleb Hammer on it before I got on the stream. And they were talking about that what George Soros does, and he talks about this is like a known thing. I'm not making this up. It's not a conspiracy theory when the person tells you what he's doing. He will find these like smaller campaigns, and he'll back like a lesser known, like, I don't know, like district attorney or AG, I don't, some type of attorney that like has to run for office. And it's like really inexpensive for him to do it. And the purpose of it is to fund this agenda that he has to like ruin America. But the left just thinks he's like so wonderful and fabulous. And I don't understand it, because I think that what he's doing is considered organized crime. I don't know why he does it. I don't know what his purpose is. I guess his purpose is to destroy our country or promote communism or socialism. I don't know. But it's really weird that people on the right see him as like the supervillain, but he's like the left's hero. Where is the disconnect? Like, can we just meet in the middle? I don't understand it. I don't, or if you like are on the left and you're on here, like, please send us some resources to back up that George Soros is doing all these great things for America, because I just have never seen that.
Attorney's office is asked to launch these investigations because of the president's post, yes or no?
I'm not even confirming that they were asked to, but most certainly not because of any truth
Well, the
from
president
President Trump.
definitely, excuse me, the president definitely posted that he should be, Mr. Soros should be charged with RICO, and lo and behold, several weeks later, that is exactly what your office sought to have done. Since last year, DOJ has sued 30 states seeking their voter lists. 14 of those lawsuits have been resolved by federal judges. Mr. Blanche, did any of those 14 federal court judges from across the country agree with DOJ's legal position? Again, yes or no?
With some of the legal positions, yes.
Pardon?
The answer to the question is yes. Some of the judges
No,
agreed
14
with some.
judges?
Agreed with some of our legal positions, and most of those cases are under appeal.
Actually, that's not correct. The answer is actually no. These 14 federal judges, some of them were Trump appointees, disagreed with DOJ's position in terms of getting access to these voter rolls.
Well, I think
it's all part of DOJ's attempt and the president's attempt at election interference. We know that federal judges are a problem for you, certainly a problem for President Trump, because they actually care about facts and evidence. And that's why last fall at a Federalist Society event, you called for young lawyers at that event to join you in fighting a war. And you said, we need you because it's a war, and it's something we will not win unless we keep on fighting. The war that you were talking about was against federal judges who were ruling against the administration, correct?
No.
Well, then do you believe that judges should be impeached based on their rulings against this administration and the president? Yes or no?
No. No, I don't believe that.
On that, you disagree with the president because he believes judges should be impeached for disagreeing with them. President Trump sees DOJ not only as a tool to attack his enemies, but also useful for helping his friends. To that end, on May 18th, you signed an Attorney General order establishing funding and setting out requirements for the so-called Anti-Weaponization Fund, correct? You signed
Yes,
such an
I
order?
did sign that document, yes.
Have you rescinded that order?
Yes, the order is no longer in effect. There is no
Oh, that-
weaponization fund,
Mr.
correct?
Blanche, that is not my question. My question is, did you rescind that order?
Yes, I'm doing it under oath right now.
No, the
It
fact
does not
that, no,
exist.
when you answer that there is no fund, that is not rescinding the order, because you can resurrect that order at any time. So actually, your answer is no, you have not rescinded that order. Mr. Blanche, one of your first acts as a Deputy Attorney General was to issue a memo eviscerating DOJ's enforcement work against crypto criminals. Crypto crime surged in 2025. Mr. Blanche, are you aware that Americans reported over $11 billion in crypto fraud losses to the FBI last year?
Our crypto enforcement is way up compared to a year and a half ago. So I didn't eviscerate anything. To the contrary, actually, we empowered AUSAs around the country to go after criminals in the right circumstances, and
Mr. Blanche.
we continue to do it.
I take it you are not aware that there were reports of over $11 billion in crypto fraud reported to the FBI. That was my question. Are you aware or are you not aware?
Are you talking about the fraud that we have prosecuted?
No, I'm
$11
talking
billion?
about the $11 billion worth of crypto crime. This is a pretty good, simple question.
I just don't understand
Are
the
you or
question.
are
I'm
you not
sorry.
aware? But it doesn't seem you're aware because you're making all kinds of excuses. The fact is that crypto enforcement, you eviscerated that work that your department is supposed to be doing. And so anyway, Mr. Blanche, when you issued your memo ending crypto crime enforcement, you held significant amounts of cryptocurrency yourself, and I sent you several letters asking you about it, and I am still awaiting your answer. Mr. Blanche, it is clear to me that your leadership is going to be a continuation of what we have seen so far at the Trump Department of Justice, or more likely to be called the Department of Retribution and Corruption. You see nothing wrong with the president treating DOJ as his own personal law firm to use as a weapon against his perceived enemies and as a way of helping his friends, and as a tool to interfere with the upcoming elections. The states run elections in this country.
This is a really hot topic for me, as you guys know, because the left and what they say about what Trump is trying to do with election integrity is so comical to me. The left cannot win without cheating. And if that triggers you, please prove me wrong. Just put something in here to prove otherwise. But the left cannot win. I'm convinced they cannot win unless they cheat. And it's not just one way of cheating. They have to cheat multiple different ways. And if you don't believe me, just go to whitehouse.gov. Donald Trump and his people posted all of the information that you need to read to see all the different ways that fraud occurs in her elections from 2020. And it's not just one thing. It's not just ballot stuffing. It's not just illegally paying people that are homeless on the street to vote for the candidate you want. It's not just those things. It's also like manipulating and threatening social media companies to suppress certain people during an election year so people can't get the real information. Threatening news organizations and social media not to like post stuff about like Hunter Biden's laptop and stuff like that. So that is part of election fraud because the people aren't getting the actual news and information. It's being suppressed. And you can call me a conspiracy theorist, but Mark Zuckerberg literally went into a hearing and admitted all of this stuff. So I just don't understand. I just think it's such a joke when somebody like this senator makes a statement that Trump is trying to weaponize the DOJ to interfere with the elections. No, Trump has an initiative for the DOJ to make sure there's no election fraud, to make sure that we don't have illegals voting, that we don't have somebody pulling out a box full of pre-filled ballots in the middle of the night. Like, I could get into this for hours. I'm not going to. I'll end this rant, but like, this is a joke. This is a joke that she would say that.
But you want to insert DOJ at every step of the process, suing the states with frivolous claims and sending threatening letters to secretaries of state. You want to suppress the votes of American citizens who will have a chance to resoundingly reject the president's corruption at the ballot box this November. You signed a memo eviscerating DOJ's cryptocurrency enforcement work, leading to a surge in Americans being victimized by cryptocurrency fraud. You also championed a slush fund for the president's allies who attacked police officers on January 6th. From the beginning, we all knew that that's what this fund was for, but now we have findings of fact from a federal judge concluding that the fund came out of a fake lawsuit filed solely to lend an air of legitimacy.
What's a fake lawsuit? What is a fake lawsuit? I didn't know that there was such a thing. What is a fake lawsuit? I don't understand. What is the meaning of that? Please, in the comments, tell me, what is a fake lawsuit? Because I thought in America, you can sue anybody for anything, whether they're guilty or innocent or whatever. You can pretty much sue anybody for anything. And if it was a fake lawsuit, don't you think it would have been like thrown out, dismissed? But that fake lawsuit ended up in a settlement from the IRS to Trump. So I don't understand. What is a fake lawsuit? This is very, very triggering what she's saying.
To the president's attempt to compensate his insurrectionist allies. You played a key role in attempting to perpetuate this fraud on American taxpayers, and you oversaw the botched release of the Epstein files, denying justice once again to survivors who have been waiting so long for it. You have no business being the Attorney General of the United States of America. I certainly urge my colleagues to vote against your confirmation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I mean, Chairman, on the crypto point, our crypto prosecutions are way up, and it is very true that crypto fraud is a thing, and it's still happening. But getting rid of a task force of a bunch of lawyers in Washington, D.C.
Okay, people in my chat, we live in 2026. When I come on here and I say things, I'm not like making it up. I streamed a hearing last Thursday. My dog is on my side. He's getting angry too. There was an announcement last Thursday from Trump. Go to whitehouse.gov. Go read it for yourself. Like, come on, guys. Stop, getting in my chat and, just spreading the CNN and MSM propaganda talking points. Makes you really stupid. There's no excuse to be dumb in 2026 unless you just want to be dumb and say dumb things and be a victim. You can look at this stuff yourself. Just go right to the source. I know that the mainstream media that's funded by Big Pharma, funded by the left, they want you to believe that Trump's just full of it, orange man bad, get triggered by Trump, have TDS, and have a heart attack because your TDS is so bad. If that's the way you want to live your life, that is fine. But you are hypnotized, and you don't have to be. And please don't take my word for it. Please just go to the source. Just go to whitehouse.gov. Just read the documents for yourself. Or even better, go to CIA.gov. Read about MK Ultra. Read about Project Mockingbird. Don't take my word for it. Go read these documents yourself. These are real things. These are real things that have been admitted by our government. These documents exist, and you can go online to the source and you can read it. So I invite you to do that, but please don't just comment a bunch of CNN propaganda that every newscaster is saying from station to station. It's really scary that so many people are in here making these statements.
Did nothing more than empower AUSAs around the country to bring cases, which is what they've done. So I'm proud of the work that we're doing in that space, and we'll continue to do it.
Before I call on Senator Tillis, we've been talking about political prosecutions. You've been criticized and the department's been criticized, but I wish you'd spare me the outrage. They cheered on Biden as he weaponized the Justice Department, targeting President Trump, congressional Republicans, parents, Catholics, and conservative Americans nationwide. So I think that the other party has zero credibility on this issue. Moreover, let's look at some of the so-called political prosecutions underway. How about the Southern Poverty Law Center? The group's apparently been funding extremist groups like the Ku Klux Klan and the National Socialist Movement. How about Don Lemon and the ICE protesters? They stormed and intimidated folks in the middle of a church service. Those are not political prosecutions. Protecting the taxpayers and other First Amendment rights is the responsibility of the government and the Justice Department. Senator Tillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm going to take up where you just left off. thank you for being before the hearing. I think you're doing very well, Mr. Blanche. I'm going to kind of ascend to the rarefied air of the moral high ground here for a minute. As I've heard some of the Democrats talking about this administration, it's almost as if they weren't here when the Biden administration did the indictments against President Trump. We've already heard it talk about Jack Smith. We haven't talked about the way that they dealt with a family member who was being indicted, and Hunter Biden. I don't remember them saying anything during those days in Judiciary Committee. I don't think I remember them ramping up the freedom of access to clinic entrances and trying to arrest pro-life people from the law that they decided to ratchet up in 1994. A couple of important cases there. And then the January 6th Capitol riot prosecutions. The fact of the matter is, and I'll get to this in a minute, the part I don't like about it, but hundreds or thousands of people's lives were destroyed because they did something stupid that day. And there's a vast difference between doing something stupid and doing something that destroys your career and ruins you financially. And this administration, the Biden administration, tapped on the emotions of the time to over-prosecute and weaponize the DOJ and went after people that I believe deserved a pardon because they weren't the people that attacked police officers. They weren't the people who knowingly destroyed the Capitol. They weren't the people who proudly went in like the QAnon shaman and pretending like he'd taken the Senate ground. They're the people that get me mad, which is why I'm not going to talk about them anymore. But it's remarkable how it's almost as if that Men in Black, that device they use to erase their memories, it's remarkable that these people sat before this committee when all that was going on and not a whiff. I hate duplicity and I hate situational ethics. And I want to lay the groundwork to say I was against that, and I'm also against some of the decisions of the president. Not you, Mr. Blanche. You work for somebody, and you got to do what you're told to do. And I hope you stay within the ethical bounds of the law. You have to answer to the bars and everyone else. But it's just jarring to hear people criticize this administration when they can't look in the mirror and ask themselves why they weren't criticizing an administration when they happen to have a blue jersey. Now, my criticism of the administration with the red jersey. January 6th, I have searched heaven and earth, and I haven't found anything except a passing comment at a C-SPAN conference. So can you tell me definitively that you think that any Capitol police officer who was harmed on January the 6th was a victim of a heinous crime at the hands of the person who did it?
Yes, and should have been prosecuted and was.
And they were. And so I just, with the members, please, as long as you can prove you've been consistent, use those sound bites. But don't use them when you look the other way, when fundamentally at the abstract level, President Biden did everything that you're accusing President Trump of doing. And a part of what we've got to get rid of, Mr. Blanche.
Because all you Dems, all you Democratic senators in Congress, not everyone, John Fetterman is okay, but all they do is accuse the right of doing the exact things that they're actually doing. And people that follow them are either hypnotized, MK Ultra, Project Mockingbird, or are just choosing to be ignorant because you guys love being triggered. You love feeling like you're the victim, that like you're a loser. It's not your fault that you're a loser. Like, Orange Man bad. How could you be successful in America, the freaking greatest country on earth, the country that millions of people would give their last dime to get here? Everybody wants to be in the U.S. and live in the U.S. and work in the U.S. It is the greatest country, and it is the best country to be in, to be an entrepreneur, and to make as much money as you want. But there is a portion of our population that just they will not take the opportunities that are in front of them, and instead, it just feels really good for them to be like, I am a loser because Orange Man bad. Orange Man bad, and that's why I'm a loser. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to take advantage of all of these opportunities for me, because orange man bad. And that's what, my favorite senator is saying, and that's what CNN tells me to say. So even though I don't look up these things myself, I have no proof, I'm just trusting Don Lemon, I'm gonna come on a stranger's live stream on YouTube and just parrot back these talking points, because then I don't have to be responsible for my own life and my own failures.
Is this political physics going on? American people are an exceptional people, and they always like to best each other. And what I've seen happening here is when we have a bad action of one administration, I'll be damned if we don't repeat it with the other one. I want leadership that says we're going to ratchet things down and not make the heinous mistakes that the Biden administration did. Let's be better than them, not better at prosecuting people that maybe we shouldn't, or take a little bit more time before we indict them. But let's just be better than them. Let's set an example and stop this spiraling, or the next Congress that I will not be a part of will be talking about it again, or in 2029, if a Democrat president comes in, they're going to up the ante, and they're going to go right after the behavior of this administration as an example of why they should. Because this administration has done the same thing to justify some of their behavior. I'm not criticizing.
And the really sad part for me is that there's so many people on the left that like to criticize our justice system, say that it's racist, say that it is unfair, that people that have money, people that are white, they get off easier, black people, Hispanic people, they're targeted by our justice system. And look at poor George Floyd, that hero from Minnesota that was loaded on fentanyl and was arrested earlier for pointing a gun at a pregnant woman's belly. He is our hero. And we need to blow up and just light our cities on fire because George Floyd died of a fentanyl overdose. But he's our hero. So our justice system sucks. We need to defund the police. But then on the other hand, when people on the right, our political enemies, are wrongfully persecuted, that's okay. That's okay because they're insurrectionists. They deserve to be tortured and their lives being ruined because they are part of that J6 insurrection. And I just think that's very hypocritical. If you're going to be against the blue, if you're going to want to defund the police and, police officers are too violent, then be consistent. You can't cheer then when somebody on the right gets the same treatment that you just cried about. Just have some integrity. Why is that so difficult for people?
But I'm trying to just cut through the rhetoric and let people all know that we are at this place today in part because of the actions of the Biden administration and the weaponization that I even saw under Garland, who I generally supported. So let's just be real here, people. If you're going to criticize one administration, look in the mirror before you do it. Now, Mr. Blanche, I want to stick a fork in this turkey of a 1776 fund. And you've said that it's moot. I've had colleagues here, attorney. I'm not an attorney. I'm a business consultant. I see a problem. I want to solve it. This is a problem. It should never be paid out. You've said it's going to be moot, that it's moot. Others, these smart attorneys that I'm surrounded by, think that the courts are probably going to deal with it. But why should we waste the court capacity on this issue? If I could walk to the Senate floor with an agreed-to piece of text coming from the administration that just renders this whole thing dead, gone. I don't need a Probst language. I don't need a statement from the administration. All I need is language to say everybody around here said it's over. So why can't we agree to language that I can walk down to the Senate floor and get a UC and dare the Democrats to oppose ending this, and dare a Republican to if the president supports it? Why is that a bad strategy?
It's not. I mean, certainly the Department of Justice and the White House has worked with you and your colleagues to come up with language. We do not object that path or including it in some other
I want to
bill.
make the distinction, though, because I know that Senator Collins and the appropriations team are working on this language. But you've already, I don't know if you've been paying attention to Congress. You've got your own job to do, but we're not necessarily getting along really well right now on the party lines. Schumer's already threatening a government shutdown. We haven't even had appropriations discussions, except ongoing negotiations. He's already threatening a shutdown. So that language could be in a bill that's dead on arrival because nobody's going to do it. My question is, who on earth, who in this Senate chamber would raise an objection if we were able to put something on the floor that ended this debate? The only reason I think that a Democrat would be opposed to it is they love milking this thing for what it is. I want to stick a fork in it. And can I get your commitment to maybe provide us with some technical assistance on what that language would look like?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Blanche, I did want to just echo, and Mr. Chairman, I know I caught him off guard, or if I can seek unanimous consent to put into the record the letter that Senator Cornyn and I sent to Mr. Blanche.
Without objection.
So that's the letter on the issue that Senator Britt most recently brought up. I think there's a way to solve that, and I have confidence in your ability to do it, Mr. Blanche. But it is very important. And I guess for the purposes of back to the pardons, I get pretty emotional about that. I think we need to do a better job of looking through the pardons process. Okay, I've talked about the January 6 pardons, but in this administration, and I'm no fan of Ed Martin, that's exactly why he'll never get confirmed in the U.S. Senate as long as I'm here. That's only 172 days. Maybe he can come back next year. But I think the pardons process is something else we have to look at. The Democrats are criticizing this administration for pardons. You take a look at the egregious list of pardons in the Biden administration, and let's not forget that the Biden administration also had prospective pardons, get out of jail free card. I heard people criticizing some of the get out of audit arguments from the agreement, 1776 agreement. Have they all forgotten that Biden in the 11th hour gave prospective pardons to people who hadn't even been charged with anything? Again, the point that I'm trying to make, folks, is you're all victims of political physics. There was no criticism about that then. And now we're trying to criticize this president for pardons that I've criticized. So the point here, and I do believe that in the Trump administration, I have talked about the January 6 pardons, but I'm concerned that the Binance CEO got pardoned. I'm concerned that there was talk about a corporation getting a pardon. So I'd be very curious, if you're confirmed, if we could sit down and understand how that process goes and to what extent we can have visibility into these people getting pardons, starting with a lot of the pardons that came out of the Biden administration. Can I get your commitment, if confirmed, to walk through that process?
Of course. Yes, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Blanche. You've done a great job today.
Senator Booker.
Good afternoon, Mr. Blanche.
Good afternoon.
Our president has a very well-documented history of attempting to corruptly influence government officials to advance his own personal interest. He called the Republican Secretary of Georgia asking him to find enough votes to overturn the election. He withheld military aid to pressure Zelensky to investigate Joe Biden's son. For these things, he has been impeached. He's been criminally convicted in Georgia, indicted in Georgia, because he uses his power to unjustly influence people. When a president routinely pressures public officials for his own personal benefit, the Department of Justice has to remain independent. This brings me really to you, and I think what has you at the center of so much concern is that you seek to lead the Department of Justice after being the president's personal lawyer. The American people are really entitled to know whether your allegiance to the rule of law is your focus or your allegiance to one man who clearly has an insatiable appetite for revenge, self-enrichment, and the abuse of power. So I want to talk about your record. Under you, the department has prosecuted people that have caught folks on both sides of the political aisle by surprise. Jim Comey, Letitia James, my colleague Adam Schiff, Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. This casts a shadow over your ideas, any ideas of independence. You directed the arrest of Mayor Ras Baraka of my city of Newark. You weren't at Delaney Hall on May 9th, 2025, when he was arrested, but yes or no, did you have a conversation with Special Agent in Charge Ricky Patel ordering him to arrest Mayor Baraka?
I had a conversation. I didn't order him to arrest. I authorized the arrest, which is my job.
So you were not there, and we have body camera footage of him then moving and saying, "We are arresting the mayor right now per," this is his quote, "the Deputy Attorney General of the United States." I want to put that into the record, your comments there. And the district court, assessing all of your conduct, admonished the Department of Justice. This is the quote of the judge, the federal judge. "Your role is not to advance political agendas. Your allegiance is to the impartial application of the law and to uphold due process for all."
You know, we really need a hearing where somebody reads back the duties of the Senate and Congress to our politicians. Because I really think that they forgot, like, what their duties are. And I think a lot of you forgot too. These are our servants. These are not our idols. We elect them to be leaders, but at the end of the day, they work for us. Congress is our house. It's the people's house. We pay for it. We pay their salaries. These are our servants, public servants. They're not all knowing and godly like some people like to just put them on a pedestal. And I think that we've really allowed them to get away with stuff they really shouldn't get away with. But we're just in here arguing with each other, calling each other names, getting really triggered because a stranger woman is on a treadmill that's so triggering for everyone. But this is how we use our time instead of actually doing something. It's really sad because these people work for us, but we just give away our power to them. We just give it away. We consent to having them enslave us. Maybe you guys like being slaves. I don't know.
But this is just one example cited by over 1,200 current and former Department of Justice officials appointed under presidents of both parties who warned that you should not be in this position because of your inability to be independent from your personal allegiance to Donald Trump over the rule of law. I met yesterday with Epstein survivors. Some of them are here in the room today. Congress, in a bipartisan fashion, passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act because the American people were demanding justice. Yet you failed to abide by that law and release the files by the deadline established by the law. And when the files were finally released, you failed to protect the survivors that.
Just remind me, were the files released under Bondi or under Blanche? Was she still around when they released the 3 million documents? I don't remember. Comment.
That law was intended to protect survivors' personal information, including names, phone numbers, home addresses, and images were released. Powerful people were redacted. Survivors were subjected to re-traumatization. More than 1,200 victims, yet only 2 people have ever been prosecuted, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, I was stunned earlier by your conversation with one of my colleagues.
I agree with him. I think more people should be prosecuted that are in the Epstein files. I think that they should be. I don't know why they're not. I think all of us, left and right, would be very happy about that. I think all of us would be really happy if we just saw, you know, more people getting punished for doing wrong things, especially people in power. I think that we would all be very happy. I think that would actually bring the right and the left together. I think that they should seriously consider that.
That you wouldn't even commit to meeting with the survivors, but you did meet with Ghislaine Maxwell. Your claim that you can't meet with these victims because they're represented by counsel is utter nonsense. Counsel can be present or a client can waive their right to have counsel, but you're a lawyer. You know this. That was not truthful what you said to my colleague. You said that they should meet with the FBI. All of these women have reported their crimes decades ago, but yet you won't meet with them. What you will do is meet with Ghislaine Maxwell. Over a year ago, you sat with her, and you publicly said you were seeking the truth. So let's talk about what that 2-day meeting produced. Did your interview with Ms. Maxwell lead to a single additional person being charged, yes or no?
No.
Did it lead to a single new investigation, yes or no?
I can't talk about whether there's any investigations.
I'm not asking you about an ongoing or closed investigation. I'm just asking you
I
about
can't
this
answer your
unusual.
question, yes or no.
Did you or anyone else from the DOJ or associated with the president discuss a presidential pardon with Ghislaine Maxwell or her attorneys?
No.
Did you discuss clemency?
I think Ghislaine should be pardoned in exchange for the full list and coming out and telling all she knows. I think that would be worth it, because I kind of think it's unfair that she is literally the only one in jail in correlation with the Epstein files. Because let's be real, I'm sure that there are a lot of powerful men on that list that hurt those victims. They should be persecuted, prosecuted. It should all come to light. We should know. Why not? I don't think it's fair that she's the only one in trouble for it, because she's not the only one that participated, and I don't think that she was the mastermind behind all of it. But also, the whole thing just doesn't sit right with me. I feel like there is a part of it that is somewhat of a psyop. And I still don't really know why people, I mean, I know it's like a talking point, like a CNN talking point that like triggers people, but like, just ask yourself, like, what will you gain by seeing everything unredacted? Like, what are you going to gain for it? I don't think most people are going to read all 3 million documents. I just don't. But I feel like we have so many more problems in this country that we need to take care of other than obsessing over the Epstein files.
Yes or no?
No.
Did you discuss?
She was convicted. What do you mean, clemency?
Did you discuss her transfer to another institution, yes or no?
No.
Well, just 1 week after your meeting, Ms. Maxwell was transferred from a low-security federal institution to a minimum security prison camp. Were you involved with that transfer?
When, as I've talked about before, in the time leading up to me going down to meet with her, we learned that she was receiving threats. It turned out when we were
I'm going to
there,
interrupt
turned
you
out-
for a matter of time because,
Okay, well, it's not a question I can answer, apparently, in the
sir,
time you're giving me.
I'm going to tell you this because I deal with issues of criminal justice. When people are under threats in a Bureau of Prison facility, they're put into solitary confinement or protective. They're not moved to a camp.
That's not always true.
It is,
You're
well,
just
what is
wrong.
what is true is someone that is accused of child sex trafficking under the Bureau of Prison's own policies is not put in a facility like this that seems clearly like a reward. The Department of Justice is also responsible that powerful corporations play by the same rules. Let's take a proposed merger between Paramount, Warner Brothers, and Discovery. This is no ordinary transaction. It was a proposed $111 billion merger involving two of the last remaining legacy Hollywood studios. As Deputy Attorney General and later Acting Attorney General, you exercise oversight of the Antitrust Division. You approved the decision to close the department's investigation into that merger, yes or no?
I was part of the decision. I
Yes,
don't know
you were
whether-
involved in that.
You
That
don't
is a
even let
yes.
me answer, man.
Did
That's
the
incredible.
career attorneys
The
who
answer to-
investigated that deal recommend closing that investigation?
I didn't have a conversation with the career, but as I was saying
I didn't
earlier,
ask you that.
was-
I asked you, did the career attorneys who investigated the deal recommend closing the
I
investigation?
have no idea what they
You were in charge of that department, yet you have no idea. Well,
I
this
didn't
is,
say I had no idea. It's no idea about the question you asked, about what the career attorney's view was.
you do not know what the career attorney's view was.
I'm not sure what the view was with respect to closing it or not closing it.
Let me tell you why ethics laws that bind you about the appearance of impropriety are so damning in this case. On the same day that Paramount shareholders voted to approve the merger, David Ellison, the head of the acquiring company, hosted a dinner that you attended honoring the President of the United States. While you were at that dinner, the DOJ was still investigating a merger. Did you speak with Mr. Ellison on that evening?
No.
Did you discuss with anyone involved in that organization that evening the department's ongoing investigations?
No.
Well, 6 weeks later, after that dinner, that investigation was closed, that you're stating you have no idea if the attorneys in charge even finished their investigation.
That's not what I said.
What did you say?
You asked me a question about whether
Just real quick, because I think this is really interesting. Did you know that Jeffrey Epstein won the Powerball? So he won an $85 million jackpot in the Oklahoma Powerball. Let me correct myself. So the money actually went to the Zorro Trust, his ranch is Zorro. So it wasn't that he personally won the Powerball. You know, his company, his trust won the Powerball. But that was in 2008, just coincidentally, right around the time he started serving his sentence and had to be on home arrest. So I just find that really interesting. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein, like, he is just so lucky, guys. Like, the lotto, I'm sure, is not fixed whatsoever. The lotto, the Powerball, nope, nothing to see here. Lucky, lucky Jeffrey Epstein.
the attorneys recommended that the investigation be closed, and I said I wasn't sure. That's different than what you just threw
Well,
back at me.
do you believe that that creates an appearance of impropriety that you were at a dinner?
No.
Okay. The Justice Department ethics rules are very clear about avoiding the appearance of impropriety. In a case like this, I don't think that's appearance of impropriety. I think that's improper. That the connected and the powerful are getting a chance to rub shoulders. It would seem appropriate that you avoid those kind of appearances and dinners like that.
Every appearance or dinner or speech that I give are cleared by ethics officials.
So your attendance at that dinner was cleared by ethics officials?
Everything that I do.
I didn't ask you everything you do. Was your appearance at that dinner
You
clear?
can ask the questions, but you cannot control my answers. I'm under oath, and I can answer the questions. I choose to answer them.
Were you
So what I will
approved
tell
to
you
approve-
is when I do
yes
things
or
outside,
no,
when I
were
do
you
things,
approved
when
by
I do
ethics
things
to-
outside of the department, whether it's a speech, whether it's a dinner, whether it's an event, they are approved by ethics officials.
You did not answer whether that attendance was approved.
Every time I go out, it's approved. Yes.
You know, Lincoln, it was said about him that if you want to see the true character of a man, don't view him in adversity, give him power. I believe you've had a lot of power. And so we don't have to speculate about what has been revealed with your time in that office. We don't need to worry about what kind of attorney general. You've already had that power. This isn't a job interview like usually. You've sat before this committee before. You've made promises time and time again before. You got the job, actually, to be the number 2 and the acting director. So this isn't a confirmation hearing. This is more of a performance review. And clearly, when it comes to the treatment of Epstein victims, when it comes to politically motivated prosecutions, when it comes from avoiding appearance of impropriety with corporations, you failed. You're asking this body for a promotion. And you've spent today making a lot of promises, promises to follow the law, promises to be independent, promises to serve the American people and not the president. But we don't need your promises. We have your record. We have watched you exercise one of the greatest powers entrusted to any public servant. And what have you shown us? 1,200 victims waiting for justice. What have you shown us? There's 2 prosecutions. While the people involved, the victims, are waiting for action, one of the people prosecuted gets the most cushy arrangement possible after you visit with her. Again and again, you seem to be favoring the interest of a president and the powerful. You've chosen Trump over truth. You've chosen corporations over the Constitution. And you failed to meet the test. I'll say this in closing. This is why your nomination should fail. The Attorney General's client is not the president. It's the American people. You've been protecting one man for most of your career, for years and years and years. He has demonstrated himself to put undue pressure. This is why he was impeached. This is why he was criminally indicted. If your record and your testimony today should show us anything, it should show you, in my opinion, that you should not be confirmed to this job.
Thank you, Senator Booker. Before I commence with my questions, I've been asked by Chairman Grassley to enter something into the record. On behalf of Senator Grassley, I'd like to enter into the record a letter supporting Mr. Blanche's nomination. This is from the Newark Police Superior Officers Association, which represents the leaders of the Newark, New Jersey Police Department. The letter touts Mr. Blanche's experience, character, temperament, and leadership. It goes on to state, quote, Mr. Blanche has consistently demonstrated an unwavering commitment to the rule of law, the fair administration of justice, and the constitutional rights afforded to every citizen, including the due process rights of law enforcement officers. Throughout his distinguished legal career, he has earned a reputation for integrity, professionalism, sound judgment, and respect for the rule of law. These qualities are essential for the nation's chief law enforcement officer, close quote. Without objection, I will enter this into the record. Mr. Blanche, at the outset, earlier you were asked by one of my colleagues about the settlement agreement and about the definition of some of the terms. Now, as I've been going through that, it seems to me that some of those terms were defined earlier in the agreement, albeit not in the section of the agreement that you were shown on the board. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator.
And those make a difference, do they not, to the nature of the question asked to you?
Yes, of course, yes.
You have no reason to believe that the so-called weaponization fund will continue because of the settlement agreement. Is that correct?
I am confident it will not.
Right. Now, during the previous administration, we saw an unprecedented and unfortunate weaponization of the U.S. Department of Justice, an institution near and dear to my heart, as I know it is to yours, and an institution that's got a long and storied reputation for impartiality. Public trust in law enforcement plummeted as a result. That should concern every member of this committee and indeed every American. The Arctic Frost investigation swept up more than 400 Republican-aligned groups and individuals with blanket investigations, fishing expeditions in some instances, designed to intimidate and silence conservative voices or anyone deemed not favorable to President Biden and those who served with him. Investigators even violated the sanctity of Congress in a brazen move that tramples on all sorts of protections, including the fundamental separation of powers. As Chairman Grassley's investigation continues, just yesterday, we learned that Jack Smith's team bypassed a required filter review and directly accessed the text, not metadata, not information about who texted who and what time they did so, but the actual content, the substantive content of texts of 44 members of Congress, 6 of them on the Senate Judiciary Committee, all without notice in a baseless fishing expedition. This was un-American, and it comes uncomfortably close to spying on a co-equal, coordinate branch of the U.S. government. As you know, protecting individual liberty and our constitutional rights is a top priority of mine. I appreciated your testimony in May before the CJS Appropriations Subcommittee, in which you called the secret collection of phone records from a dozen members of Congress, quote, the worst form of abuse, close quote. I sponsored the bipartisan NDO legislation long before Arctic Frost, and I believe this must be fixed, no matter who holds the presidency in a way that protects all Americans. In fact, this calls upon us, underscores the need to pass that NDO reform measure. What steps have you already taken in your capacity as Deputy Attorney General and now Acting Attorney General? And what reforms do you plan in the future to end these practices and this trend of weaponization within the department?
Thank you, Senator. Well, there's a number of things we're doing. Most significantly, it's getting materials together and being transparent with this body and this committee like we did recently with the emails that you just referenced. Because one of the best ways that we can make sure we never do again what we did before is by exposing ourselves and letting the American people see what we did. We're also taking steps to right the wrongs. So that means, again, going back and issuing reports and issuing findings and conclusions around not only what the Department of Justice did at times, but other agencies within the executive, and calling ourselves, holding ourselves to account that we shouldn't do it again. And the most important thing, and it's come up a lot today, but it is just having prosecutors prosecute bad guys. And so it's getting prosecutors out of D.C. and into U.S. attorneys' offices and unleashing them to do what they should be doing and what they should have been doing for the past 4 years as well, which is tackling the drug pandemic and epidemic we have in this country, going after the fraudsters. And that's the best way to make sure that the next Department of Justice continues doing the right thing and not the wrong thing.
That's wonderful. Sometimes when you're doing the things that are not supposed to be done, you're not doing the things that are supposed to be done. I appreciate your efforts in that regard. On another topic, federal law prohibits non-citizens from voting in federal elections. Separately, a law called the National Voter Registration Act of 1993, sometimes known as the NVRA, requires, among other things, that the states keep their voter registration files clean, removing voters who have died, who have become ineligible, and to make those maintenance records available for public inspection. The Department of Justice has relied on that disclosure requirement to request state voter rolls and to confirm compliance with this mandate in the NVRA among the states. But a number of states have refused. And when the Department of Justice has sued in order to correct this problem, some federal courts have issued rulings indicating that the NVRA doesn't clearly authorize the NVRA. The NVRA doesn't clearly authorize this kind of compelled production of the complete voter registration files. So the department is thus left without a reliable, viable enforcement tool, even where noncompliance might be staring us in the face, as it is in some jurisdictions. Put simply, non-citizens can't legally vote. But a number of these states, blue states more than others, are doing everything they can to prevent the Department of Justice from enforcing the law. In the meantime, we've got an interpretation of other provisions of the NVRA that have made it, in tandem with this other problem, virtually impossible to enforce the law prohibiting non-citizen voting in federal elections. In your view, would the Save America Act give the Department of Justice clear authority in its efforts to protect the sanctity and security of those elections?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. This is a very important issue. Now, under your leadership, the Department of Justice fraud enforcement has seen some real success. You've got a lot of success stories under your belt already. Can you describe how you're leading that effort in the department to combat citizen fraud, healthcare fraud, and fraud in taxpayer-funded programs and organizations?
Yes, we're making it a high priority. We're working with the White House and the Anti-Fraud Task Force and unleashing, again, having prosecutors focus on fraud. And so that means working with inspectors general, that means working with the FBI, DHS, to get these cases, take them to prosecutors. The fraud division itself is being built up. We've already had tremendous success just in the past 4 weeks in recovering billions of dollars that had been stolen from the FISC. And this is work that is just starting. We've always done fraud cases. This isn't a new thing for the Department of Justice to do, but the focus on these fraud cases and the focus on every U.S. attorney having multiple prosecutors focused on going after fraud cases is something new, and it's something that is important to President Trump, and it should be important to everybody, not a Republican or Democrat issue at all, and that's why we're doing it.
Shifting gears a little, tell us just very briefly about what the department's doing under your leadership to protect children from predators.
It's listen, there is no greater responsibility prosecutors have than protecting our most vulnerable. And so we recently stood up, I have a leader, she's here today, running our.
So I know that you guys love to comment and just parrot back propaganda that MSM tells you, but let's set the record straight for the people that weren't here yesterday. I know that you love to call Todd Blanche Trump's personal attorney. You know, that's all he ever was. That's all he'll ever be in your eyes. He's illegitimate. We can't confirm him because he's just an extension of Trump. But that's just not true. Did you know that he actually began his career? He was a paralegal with the Department of Justice. He absolutely deserves to be in this position. And all you have to do is like a quick 90-second like Google search, 60-second. And it'll tell you all you need to know about him. But it's just so silly. Like, you come into these chats and, oh my God, like, the hypnotism, the MK Ultras, the Project Mockingbirds are real. So real. It's mind-blowing to just see the same comments over and over. Maybe these people are bots in here. Maybe it's just bots. But I do think that there are people out here that just feel like virtuous and righteous, parroting back these like talking points that are just pure propaganda. And you don't know anything about what you're talking about. And it's so silly. But we can continue.
Task forces going after any sort of human trafficking or child predators, in those cases, making sure we're coordinated. We are, again, focusing AUSAs on going after these cases. We've seen multiple investigations leading to prosecutions and even multiple sentences at this point, starting since we first took office over a year ago. And again, this is about spending resources where they should be spent. So instead of spending time in DC working on cases that we really have no business working on, we are out in the field protecting our victims, protecting.
Since we're on the topic, let me just give you his quick resume. So he actually is an alumni like myself. He went and got his bachelor's at American University, just like me. I was actually a justice major. He graduated cum laude from Brooklyn Law School. And like I said, he worked as a contractor and he was a paralegal for the DOJ. He was part of the criminal division in Washington, D.C. Then he became a paralegal at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, another very prestigious position. He was a judicial clerk, so he clerked actually for 2 federal judges. One was appointed by a Democratic president and one was appointed by a Republican president. Then he went on to become a federal prosecutor. So he returned to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, and he was a AUSA, an assistant U.S. attorney. There, he prosecuted violent crime and other federal crimes. And then he actually then became a chief, a supervisor of the Violent Crimes Unit. Later, he became the chief of the White Plains Division of the Southern District of New York. Then he went on to work in private practice. He worked at a firm called Wilmer Hale, then became a partner at Cadwalader, Wickersham & Taft. It's a major international law firm. And then he founded Blanche Law. So, you know, he is actually a very high profile defense attorney and he has tons of experience. Yes, he was Trump's attorney. He represented Trump in a few of his cases. But he also has represented Paul Manafort, Igor Fruman, and Boris Epstein, who worked for Trump as well. And now he's our new Deputy Attorney General, our new AG. But for anybody to come in here and say that he doesn't deserve this position, he doesn't have the credentials, he's just Trump's personal attorney, that's just so not true. And that's, like, I love when you guys call me rude for walking on a treadmill while I'm streaming, but that's rude. That is rude. Like, this man has earned his way to this position, and I think he is perfect for the job, and I'm so glad that our Senate doesn't listen to crazy people that just parrot back CNN propaganda. But let's give this guy credit where credit's due. He deserves to be in this position. He definitely worked his way up, did his time, and he deserves to be in this position, and I think he's going to do a great job.
Children and going after the predators that are in every community and putting them in federal prison.
I'd like to turn now briefly to Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA 702. And I want to address some of the repeated claims made by some of my colleagues that our intelligence collection under 702 would go dark when the statute lapsed as of midnight on June 12th. As you know, Section 702 operates under year-long certifications approved annually by the FISA court. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the government most recently obtained approval of its 702 certifications in March of this year. Is that correct?
It did, yes.
So those certifications remain valid until they expire, right?
Correct.
And they don't expire until midnight on March 16th of 2027. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So in the event that the telecommunications providers don't comply, the FISA court can and would compel compliance and impose fines. Isn't that right?
We would certainly try, yes. We would come.
Thank you. I want to echo briefly what my colleague, Senator Coons, has commented with regard to the Safer Supervision Act to ensure that supervised release is focused on those who need it, promoting both efficiency and public safety. So thanks for your comments on that. I really appreciated those. And then also, some of my colleagues have mentioned a recent court order in the case regarding the leak of President Trump's tax returns and the ensuing settlement. Responding to that opinion, was there any improper coordination of any kind between the Department of Justice and the Trump team as to this settlement?
No, not at all.
Okay. So, in fact, the case itself was settled based on an apology without any compensation being awarded, without the president receiving a penny. Isn't that right?
Correct, and completely consistent with the Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 41, which absolutely allows what happened here to happen. It happens in hundreds, if not thousands, of cases around the country every year.
For any entity, whether it's the U.S. government or otherwise, that's been sued for $10 billion or any significant sum of money. That seems like a pretty darn good deal. I see my time's expired. I believe Senator Padilla is up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Blanche, welcome. Do you believe every human life is sacred?
Can you repeat that, Senator? Sorry.
Do you believe that every human life is sacred?
Yes.
So do I. A lot of my colleagues have made remarks about our colleague who recently passed. This last week, we've also seen Lorenzo Salgado Araujo fatally shot by an ICE agent during an enforcement operation in Houston. Earlier this week, Juan Sebastian Guerrero was killed in another fatal ICE-involved shooting in Maine. I'm not here to debate immigration policy or how immigration enforcement has been conducted by this administration. My questions are specific to law enforcement policy and best practices. Given that these are officer-involved shootings, federal officer-involved shootings, what role should the Department of Justice play in ensuring independent and transparent review and investigations over these incidents?
It depends on the agency that the law enforcement officer was a member of. So if it's a FBI agent as opposed to an ICE agent or an HSI agent. And the role that we should play depends. It depends on the conduct. Normally, each agency has their own procedures for investigating any type of shooting. And it usually involves their inspector general or an internal office. At some point along the way, the DOJ
I don't want to cut you off too quickly here,
Sure.
but I want to come back to that point.
Sure.
But first ask, should state and local law enforcement be involved in ensuring that there's an independent investigation of these incidents?
I mean, it depends. I think there's a lot of times when state and locals should definitely be involved, but I don't think unequivocally state and local have to be involved for independence. Of course not.
Here's the bottom line why I'm asking these two questions. Because in prior incidents, referenced Minnesota earlier in your testimony, Alex Preddy and Renee Good were also fatally shot. And as far as we can tell, it's been months and months, there's been no justice in these cases. As far as I can tell, those officers were not fired. They have not faced any charges. So it does undermine any confidence anybody should have in the Department of Homeland Security's ability, through the Inspector General or otherwise, to investigate its own. So I come back to the question, what should the role of the Department of Justice be when there's federally officer-involved shootings?
Well, I very much disagree with the statement you just made. The mere passage of time between January and today doesn't mean there's no justice. It doesn't mean that so these investigations do take time. And as Senator Klobuchar talked about, and it's her state, we meaning the federal government, have worked with the state and locals in that case.
Move on to other issues, but here's what I see. I mean, no justice, clear justice, and I get investigations take time, but no justice. In those two cases, what we have seen is people continuing to die, not just in detention facilities, but on the streets of America. Next topic, coming back to January 6th. There have been several of my colleagues who have asked about the quote-unquote slush fund. Do you personally believe that someone who forcibly entered the U.S. Capitol and assaulted law enforcement should be rewarded with taxpayer money? Yes or no?
I can't answer it yes or no, but if you want the answer, I think that the fund that doesn't exist anymore set up parameters where, no, somebody that you just described would likely not recover funds.
Which brings me to my other point, because several members have asked, and I know Senator Till is specifically focused on the weaponization slush fund and language versus declarations versus appropriations bills on how to undo this. I also need to be clear that January 6ers should not be able to seek payouts from other sources, including the Federal Tort Claims Act. Do you?
Wrong. Anybody, well, first of all, they've blocked the J6 slush fund, which has nothing to do with J6 whatsoever. We've talked about this a couple times. But Trump filed a lawsuit with the IRS. They settled with him, and part of that settlement agreement was a fund that was created where anybody could apply if they feel like they had been politically prosecuted. I've told the story so many times. So one of the attorneys that represents a bunch of the J6ers had made a comment publicly that he was going to encourage his clients to apply to get funds from this fund. So now the left just loves to bring up this talking point, and they call it the J6 slush fund. Total propaganda, first of all. Second of all, no money from that fund has ever been distributed. It's been blocked. So I don't even know why we're talking about it. It's like a moot point. Nobody's gotten any money out of it. But the truth is that anybody can apply for it. If you feel, as a U.S. citizen, that you were politically persecuted, you can apply to get money back from this fund that Trump negotiated in a settlement with the IRS.
You commit to vigorously defending taxpayer money from being paid out to January 6 riders, those who were convicted of their involvement with January 6, regardless of the source of funding from the Department of Justice?
You're talking about a statute that exists and it allows anybody to seek to file a suit against the United States. So I can tell you we always vigorously defend our cases, but I can't speak to a particular case.
Well, we know this
the
is a hypothetical. There's been at least 4 letters that I've signed on to, along with Senators Durbin, Klobuchar, and Whitehouse, who asked earlier about the status of January 6 riders seeking payouts from the department. When can we expect responses to those letters?
When you say status, you mean those that have filed cases in court? I don't know what that means.
The status of their request for payouts being reviewed, approved, or not.
I think anybody, including January 6 defendants, can file a claim under the Federal Tort Claims Act, and I think some of them have. Those cases are ongoing. They're publicly available on ECF.
And I know some people would suggest, well, they've all been pardoned for their crimes on January 6th, and so this may be fair game. Are you aware that at least 97 January 6ers have been accused of new crimes since January 6, 2021?
Why are they acting so shocked? Obviously, I'm sure he supports it. Trump supports it. Trump pardoned them all. I don't know what answer they are hoping to accomplish by interrogating him about this. They're free now. They all went through hell. Again, you guys love to point out that we should defund the police and they're so corrupt and too much violence and it's racist, but bunch of guys, on the right, they're insurrectionists, so now we need to throw the book at them and treat them like trash. But then we're going to go protest because, there's atrocities going on in Palestine and other countries, and we got to protest because we believe that people should have rights and they should be treated humanely, except for the January 6ers, except for our political enemies. You should throw the book at them. They don't deserve to be treated like humans. That's what you guys are all saying. It's really, really sad. Really sad.
Including violent crimes, by the way, child molestation, et cetera. That sounds like the worst of the worst to me.
If anybody commits a crime, they should be investigated, arrested, and prosecuted. So if you're talking about people that committed federal crimes and they happen to have been pardoned before, they should be arrested and prosecuted. Yes.
Well, I look forward to that as well, and we'll follow up in questions for the record. Mr. Blanche, during our courtesy meeting a few weeks ago, you said that, quote, independence of the department was a misnomer in the context of the Department of Justice because the president sets policies and priorities, and your view, the Department of Justice must enforce the law in a way that carries out the president's goals. Do you recall that conversation?
Yeah, I definitely did not say that, but nice try.
No, that's exactly what I recall from our conversation. So I want to be on the record saying
Well, I'm happy
disagree.
to tell you what I said to help your recollection.
So the Department of Justice should be independent or not?
I think as I said earlier, the Department of Justice is under the executive branch. If confirmed, I will be member of the president's cabinet. So absolutely, my obligation is the American people and the rule of law.
So we'll
but
talk
that
about
being said, I am a member of the cabinet of the president of the United States.
We'll talk about the if confirmed in a minute, but let me also point out the Department of Justice's own website states right on the homepage that what the department's core missions is independence and impartiality. So let me bring a specific example. Last fall, President Trump issued a statement for National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, where he said, quote, I'm steadfastly devoted to uplifting survivors of domestic violence and ensuring they know they are never alone and that help and support are always within reach, end quote. Sounds like a statement that we'd all agree with. But the Office of Violence Against Women is a vital component of the Department of Justice that administers grants to organizations that provide services for victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, dating violence.
They're obsessed with sexual assault. Can anybody tell me what happened to Eric Swalwell? I don't remember hearing any of the Dems say anything about him when it came out, all the sexual assault that he was doing. Am I wrong? Did some of them come out publicly and, discuss how they feel because they just hate sexual assault and sexual abuse so bad? So I would assume that there was a lot of outrage from the left when we found out that Eric Swalwell was doing this, but I don't remember hearing anything from any of them. Am I wrong? Can you guys tell me in the chat, which Democratic leaders came out to tell you how outraged they were about Eric Swalwell?
And stalking. It provides critical resources to organizations that support victims. Yes or no? Are you aware that the office is substantially delayed in notifying grant recipients of awards that were intended to begin October 1st of last year?
We are rolling grants out on a rolling basis, and we continue to do so. We will continue to do so. We didn't have the grants authorized till January of this year.
And it's now July. It's been 6 months. Next yes or no question. Are you aware that as a result of the delays, many organizations have been forced to lay off staff and reduce services for domestic violence victims? Yes or no?
I am not aware of that, no.
Okay. We're happy to provide you information and cases. Are you aware that many notices of funding opportunities for the fiscal year 26 have yet to be posted for grants that are supposed to begin on October 1st of this year?
I know that we are posting, that we are caught up from the last fiscal year. The budget wasn't approved until January of this year. We had to finish last year's first. We're putting them out every single day.
Again, it's been 6 months. Are you aware that multiple congressional offices from both sides of the aisle, this is not partisan, on a bipartisan basis have reached out to the office about delays and have not been given any concrete timeline despite the real and substantial impact that these delays are having on domestic violence services.
That's not true. I've testified publicly about it on multiple occasions, and we have given a timeline. I just gave you the timeline today, which is that we're doing it every day on a rolling basis. We're caught up to last year's,
So
and
I'd
we're
like to see a
moving
more
forward, and we
specific schedule
anticipate
so
having
that
all of them done
organizations in
by the end of this
California
fiscal
and
year.
every other state, for that matter, can know when to expect their funding. I know my time is running out. Let me just end with this. Mr. Blanche, it's the duty of the Attorney General of the United States to, quote, operate free from partisan consideration and protect citizens' rights to equal justice. But what I've heard today fails to inspire much confidence in your ability to carry out that duty or to put federal law before loyalty to the president. I add to that facts from the judiciary. District courts in 31 cases have recognized that the administration has violated court rulings. The Solicitor General refuses to rule out, refusing to abide by court rulings that this circuit court rulings that they disagree with. In immigration cases alone, the administration has admitted violating court orders in the District of New Jersey alone more than 50 times. This does not sound like a Department of Justice. The American people deserve better. And a lot of nominees come before us and say, well, if I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed, then this or that. I'm not buying that. I know you're not confirmed for the top spot. You're acting in the top spot. You were the number 2 from nearly the beginning of the term. Yes, a lot of this accountability falls on your shoulders. The American people deserve an Attorney General who put the Constitution above political retribution. I don't think you're fit for this job. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We'll go next to Senator.
All right, guys, like I said, this is a really long hearing, so we're going to end here for tonight. I will be back tomorrow night, probably a little bit earlier tomorrow night, though. Anyways, thanks for joining me. Again, the chat was, like, really lit. Sorry for my sarcasm earlier, but I really just do not like hypocrisy. And, you know, I think that if you're passionate about an issue, if you're passionate that, you know, the police force is too violent and we should treat all people with dignity, cool, okay, I can get on board with that. But if you're going to say, oh, okay, well, we can only treat people on the left like that, but when the right does something we don't like, we're going to treat them like they're animals, that's where I have a problem. I agree. We should be treating people nicely if they deserve it. We should be treating people with dignity. There's no excuse for, you know, police brutality. There isn't. I support the police, but we don't need excessive force. We don't need things to go overboard. But we need to uphold that for all people, not just people on our side. Because we're all American citizens, and most of all, we're all human beings. Have a good night. I will see you guys back tomorrow.